Deep within the quantum communications lab at Luna Base, Dr. Sarah Chen stared at her monitor in disbelief. The signal patterns dancing across her screen defied every natural explanation. After 15 years of searching the cosmos for signs of intelligent life, humanity's first contact wasn't coming from some distant star system. It was practically on their doorstep, just beyond the Kuiper Belt. "Director Matthews, you need to see this," she called out. Her voice steadied despite her racing heart. The signal pulsed with an unmistakable pattern. Too regular to be natural, too complex to be random space noise. The lab director hurried over, his eyes widening as he processed the data. "Is this some kind of joke?" he asked, but they both knew it wasn't. The quantum entanglement network they'd built to communicate with their outer solar system colonies was picking up something impossible, a signal writing their own quantum channels. Within hours, the lab was flooded with military personnel and government officials. The signal had resolved itself into clear mathematical sequences, then into recognizable language patterns. But it wasn't the message anyone had expected for humanity's first contact. It was a desperate plea for help. The translation matrices worked furiously to decode the alien language, but the urgency in the transmission needed no translation. The message came from a species calling themselves the Arcadians, and they were dying. Admiral Helena Rodriguez stood before the United Earth Security Council 3 days later, her weathered face illuminated by the holographic display showing the translated message. "The Arcadians are a Type Io civilization," she explained, capable of harnessing the entire energy output of their star system. "By our standards, they're practically gods, and they're terrified." The council chamber fell silent as she continued. "They're being systematically exterminated by something they call the Void Collective, a silicon-based consciousness that exists in the space between stars. The Arcadians' energy weapons and shields pass right through them. Their predictive AI can't anticipate the Collective's movements. Their entire civilization is on the brink of collapse. And they're asking us for help." Councillor Zhang's skepticism was evident. "We barely have colonies beyond Mars. What could we possibly offer a Type Io civilization?" Admiral Rodriguez's lips curved into a slight smile. "Everything they don't have. Ballistic weapons, kinetic kill vehicles, analog backup systems, the ability to think and fight without relying on predictive computers. Everything they considered primitive about us. That's exactly what they need." The holographic display shifted to show the Arcadian fleet's current position. Their ships were beautiful, almost organic in design, built from materials that seemed to deny physics itself. But they were running out of space to retreat. "The Void Collective has never encountered a species like us," Rodriguez continued. "We evolved on a death world, fighting gravity and atmospheric pressure that would crush most sentient species. We built our civilization expecting things to go wrong, planning for failure, maintaining backup systems that other species would consider redundant. We're exactly what they need. Warriors who can think outside their perfect technological box." The council chamber erupted in debate, but Rodriguez knew they had no real choice. The Void Collective wouldn't stop with the Arcadians. Sooner or later, they would find Earth. 24 hours later, humanity launched its first interstellar military operation. The newly commissioned UESS Thermopylae led a fleet of 30 ships toward the quantum signal's origin. They weren't the sleek, energy-efficient vessels of the Arcadians. Human ships were overbuilt, bristling with point defense systems and railguns, carrying enough ammunition to fight prolonged battles without resupply. On the bridge of the Thermopylae, Captain Maya Santos watched her crew prepare for humanity's first interstellar battle. Their ships might look crude compared to Arcadian technology, but they were built to survive. Multiple redundant systems, manual overrides for every critical component, and enough armor to survive hits that would vaporize Arcadian vessels. "All ships report ready, Captain," her XO reported. "The Arcadians have transmitted their tactical data. Their AI predicts we have a 12% chance of survival." Santos smiled. Then we'll show them why humans don't trust predictions. Plot accords to the Arcadian position. It's time to show the galaxy why they should be glad we're on their side. As the human fleet accelerated toward their first alien battle, Santos couldn't help but appreciate the irony. Humanity had always imagined first contact would come from beings far more advanced, teaching them the secrets of the cosmos. Instead, they were about to teach one of the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy a lesson about the value of imperfection. The Thermopyla's quantum communications officer suddenly called out, "Captain, new transmission from the Arcadian fleet. The Void Collective has launched another attack. They're requesting immediate assistance." Santos straightened in her command chair. "Send to all ships, battle stations, load kinetic penetrators and prepare point defense systems. Let's show these silicon-based bastards what happens when they pick a fight with humanity." The human fleet surged forward, their engines pushing against the fabric of space itself. They weren't the most advanced ships in the galaxy, but they carried something the Void Collective had never encountered before: the indomitable spirit of a species that had evolved on a world that tried to kill them every day. Humanity's first interstellar war was about to begin, and the galaxy was about to learn why sometimes the most primitive solution was exactly what you needed. First Contact Specialist Zira observed the human warriors with a mixture of fascination and horror. Her crystalline body refracted light in patterns that reflected her emotional state, currently a swirling mix of anxiety and hope. The human ship's gravity felt crushing, even at the reduced levels they'd set for the Arcadian delegation. The humans called this vessel the Destroyer. UES at Valley Forge. Like all human ships, it was built with a philosophy that seemed backwards to Arcadian sensibilities. Where Arcadian vessels were seamless constructs of pure energy and thought, human ships were crude assemblages of metal and explosives. They required constant maintenance, leaked atmosphere in numerous places, and relied on mechanical systems that seemed centuries behind Arcadian technology. Yet these same crude vessels were humanity's gift to her dying civilization. "As you can see," Lieutenant James Chen explained, leading her through the ship's combat information center, "we maintain physical backup controls for every system." He gestured to what looked like antiquated manual interfaces. "Even if we lose power, lose computers, lose everything, we can still fight." Zyra's crystalline form flickered with confusion. "But why plan for such failures? Our systems are perfect. They never fail." Chen's laugh surprised her. "Everything fails eventually. That's why we build redundancy into everything. 3 backup generators, manual hydraulics for critical systems, and enough spare parts to rebuild half the ship if we have to." The tour continued through the ship's missile batteries. The weapons were massive, primitive kinetic kill vehicles that relied on raw physics rather than the elegant energy weapons of Arcadian ships. "Your civilization's weapons are based on disrupting matter with precise energy frequencies," Chen explained. "But the Void Collective exists partly out of phase with normal spacetime. Energy weapons pass right through them. But these projectiles—" "Mass is mass," Chen grinned. "Even beings that exist between dimensions have to follow basic physics. You hit anything hard enough, it breaks. Simple as that." As they approached the bridge, alarms suddenly blared throughout the ship. "Battle stations," a calm voice announced. "This is not a drill. Void Collective signatures detected at extreme range." Zyra watched in amazement as the humans burst into action. Unlike the smooth, coordinated responses of Arcadian crews, the humans moved with controlled chaos. They shouted confirmations, manually checked systems, and relied on what seemed like primitive verbal communication. "Stay here," Chen ordered, helping her into a secure observation post. "You'll want to see this." The battle that followed defied everything Zyra thought she knew about space warfare. The Void Collective ships emerged from subspace like tears in reality, exactly where Arcadian predictive systems said they wouldn't be. But the humans hadn't relied on predictions. "Launch chaff clouds," Captain Santos ordered. "Let's give them something to think about." Clouds of metallic particles erupted from the human ships, creating a three-dimensional maze that confused the collective sensors. The humans had learned that while energy weapons passed through the silicon-based entities, good old-fashioned physical matter still affected their ability to perceive and move. The Valley Forge shuddered as it launched its first salvo of kinetic penetrators. The massive projectiles accelerated to relativistic speeds, their targeting systems guided by human intuition rather than predictive AI. The Void Collective, used to fighting the precise, predictable patterns of Arcadian ships, found themselves facing an enemy that embraced chaos. Direct hit, someone shouted. Zira watched in amazement as one of the collective ships literally shattered, its silicon-based structure pulverized by the impact of human ingenuity. The battle lasted less than an hour. The collective, facing tactics they had never encountered, retreated in disarray. But the humans didn't celebrate. Instead, they immediately began repairs, learning from what worked and what didn't. "I don't understand," Zira admitted to Chen after the battle. "Your technology is inferior, your methods chaotic, your entire approach to warfare seems primitive." "Maybe that's exactly why it works," Chen replied. "The collective evolved to fight perfect enemies. They learned to counter elegant solutions and predictable strategies. But humans? We're messy. We're redundant. We plan for failure and we learn from our mistakes. That's not weakness. It's our greatest strength." As if to emphasize his point, repair crews were already swarming over the Valley Forge's hull, fixing battle damage with a combination of high-tech tools and what looked like simple welding torches. The ship's systems might require constant maintenance, but they could be repaired with basic tools and raw materials. "Your civilization built itself on the assumption that technology would solve everything," Chen continued. "We built ours knowing that everything can fail. That's why we never stopped developing primitive solutions alongside advanced ones." Zira watched the repair crews work, her crystalline form slowly shifting to reflect understanding. Perhaps, she realized, this was why the universe had brought their civilizations together. The Arcadians had reached for perfection and found themselves vulnerable to an enemy that could counter that perfection. The humans, with their embrace of imperfection and redundancy, might be exactly what they needed to survive. As she prepared to return to her own ship, Zira paused. "Lieutenant Chen, I believe I owe you an apology. We thought we were so far beyond you, but there is much we can learn from humanity." Chen smiled. "And there's much we can learn from you. Maybe that's the real lesson here. Not that one approach is better than the other, but that together we're stronger than either of us alone." The Valley Forge's engines rumbled as it prepared to rejoin the fleet. The first battle had been won, but the war was just beginning. Yet for the first time since the Void Collective had appeared, Zira felt real hope. Sometimes it seemed salvation came not from advancing forward, but from remembering what you'd left behind. The combined human-Arcadian fleet gathered at the edge of the Helios sector, the last defensive line before the Arcadian core worlds. Admiral Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the UESS Thermopylae, studying the tactical display with First Speaker Lyra of the Arcadian High Command. The contrast between them was striking. Rodriguez in her practical battle armor, Lyra's form a shifting pattern of pure energy contained within a humanoid shape. The Void Collective has never attacked with less than overwhelming force. Lyra's thoughts resonated directly in Rodriguez's mind. Their tactical analysis is perfect. They strike only when victory is certain. Rodriguez smiled grimly. Then let's give them something their analysis can't predict. She turned to her tactical officer. Deploy Operation Thunderbolt. Across the human fleet, cargo bays opened to release thousands of small, seemingly primitive objects. To the Arcadian sensors, they appeared to be little more than metal boxes with basic propulsion systems. "What are those?" Lyra asked, her energy form flickering with curiosity. "We call them dumb boxes," Rodriguez explained. "No computers, no advanced tech. just metal shells filled with reactive materials and mechanical triggers. The collective's sensors can't predict what they'll do because there's nothing to predict. They're literally too simple to hack or analyze. The tactical display suddenly blazed with alerts. The Void Collective had arrived, their silicon-based ships emerging from subspace in their typical perfect formation. But this time, instead of facing organized energy weapon fire from Arcadian ships, they encountered a cloud of unpredictable objects tumbling through space. Now, Rodriguez ordered. The dumb boxes detonated, not with energy weapons or sophisticated explosives, but with simple chemical reactions that sent clouds of metallic particles and crystalline shards in every direction. The Void Collective ships, designed to phase through energy attacks, found their sensor systems blinded by the most basic of physical obstacles. All ships, execute attack pattern Delta, Rodriguez commanded. The human fleet moved in what appeared to be chaos, but was actually a carefully choreographed dance of controlled violence. Unlike the Arcadian ships that relied on predictive AI for coordination, each human captain acted independently within the broader strategy. The Thermopylae shuddered as it launched its main weapons. Kinetic kill vehicles, essentially giant bullets accelerated to relativistic speeds, tore through space. The Void Collective, their perfect formations disrupted by the debris clouds, couldn't phase out of reality fast enough to dodge. Energy signatures detecting multiple critical hits, the tactical officer reported. The collective is attempting to regroup, but their formation is broken. Lyra's form pulsed with amazement. Their predictive systems can't calculate your attack patterns. The chaos, it's deliberate. Humans learned warfare in 3 dimensions on a planet trying to kill us, Rodriguez replied. We never developed the luxury of perfect prediction. We learned to think on our feet, to adapt, to embrace controlled chaos. The battle continued to unfold, but not according to any plan the Arcadians would have recognized. Human ships deliberately created areas of apparent weakness, baiting collective vessels into traps. When the silicon-based entities tried to phase through physical obstacles, they found themselves emerging into clouds of reactive particles that interfered with their ability to maintain cohesion. Launch the heat warheads, Rodriguez ordered, using an acronym that made Lyra's energy form ripple with confusion. High-explosive anti-tank weapons, designed millennia ago to defeat armored vehicles on Earth, had been adapted for space warfare. The shaped charges sent streams of superheated metal through the collective ships, proving that even beings of silicon and void could be hurt by enough brute force. But the Void Collective wasn't defeated easily. They adapted, trying new formations and tactics. Yet this too played into humanity's strengths, the ability to take punishment and keep fighting. The Thermopylae's hull rang with impacts as collective weapons found their mark. Emergency teams rushed to contain breaches and reroute systems. Unlike Arcadian ships that relied on perfect shields, human vessels were built to take damage and keep functioning. Port-side kinetic batteries are offline, the tactical officer reported. Switch to backups, Rodriguez ordered calmly. Engineering, give me manual control of the starboard batteries. Lyra watched in fascination as the humans continued fighting with damaged systems and jury-rigged repairs. Where an Arcadian ship would have retreated for perfect restoration, the human vessels pressed on with whatever resources they had left. The battle reached its climax as the combined fleet pushed toward the collective's command ship. The silicon-based entities had never faced an enemy that could hurt them this badly, and their perfect predictive systems began to show signs of confusion. They're retreating, Lyra announced, her form bright with disbelief. Their tactical analysis shows no path to victory. Rodriguez allowed herself a small smile. Sometimes the best way to win isn't to be stronger or more advanced. It's to be too unpredictable to defeat. As the Void Collective ships vanished into subspace, the human fleet began immediate repairs. Unlike the Arcadians, who would have celebrated a perfect victory, the humans were already learning from their mistakes and improving their tactics. You've given us more than victory, Lyra said quietly. You've shown us that perfection can be a weakness, that sometimes the crude solution, the redundant system, the ability to fail and adapt, these are strengths we had forgotten. The Arcadian core worlds were safe for now. But as Rodriguez looked at the battle damage and casualty reports, she knew this was just the beginning. The Void Collective would return, having learned from this defeat, but they would find humanity had learned too. And unlike their silicon-based enemy, humans had been learning from failure their entire existence. "Signal the fleet," Rodriguez ordered. "We begin repairs immediately, and get me a secure channel to Earth. It's time to start production on more primitive solutions." Captain Maya Santos stood in the Valley Forge's makeshift memorial hall, studying the growing wall of names. 3 months into the war with the Void Collective, humanity had learned painful lessons about fighting an enemy that could phase through solid matter. Each name on the wall represented a lesson written in blood and sacrifice. "I didn't expect to find you here," Lieutenant Chen said, entering the hall quietly. He carried a tablet displaying the latest tactical analysis from the Combined Fleet's Warfare Division. "Just remembering why we fight," Santos replied, touching one of the nameplates. "The Arcadians don't understand this. Their perfect technology, their flawless predictions, they never learned how to handle loss." The tablet Chen carried showed the aftermath of their latest engagement. The Void Collective had adapted to human tactics, learning to counter the chaff clouds and predict the trajectories of kinetic weapons. 5 human ships had been lost in the battle, but they'd taken down 3 times as many collective vessels. "They're learning from us," Chen noted, scrolling through the combat data. "But that's exactly what we wanted them to do." Santos smiled grimly. "Because while they learn to fight like us, we're learning to fight like them. Show me what engineering has come up with." The display shifted to show a new weapon design, a hybrid of human ingenuity and Arcadian technology. The Arcadians had been horrified when humans suggested deliberately introducing flaws into their perfect energy weapons, but the results were undeniable. Random fluctuations in the energy beams made them harder for the collective to phase through. "First Speaker Lyra wants to observe our next combat drill," Chen reported. "They're fascinated by how we train for failure." The combat drills had become a source of constant amazement to their Arcadian allies. While Arcadian crews trained for perfect execution, human crews deliberately practiced with damaged systems, failed equipment, and worst-case scenarios. They treated failure not as something to be avoided, but as a tool for improvement. A sudden alert interrupted their discussion. "Captain to the bridge," the intercom crackled. "Priority message from Admiral Rodriguez." The bridge was tense with anticipation when Santos arrived. The tactical display showed a massive Void Collective fleet gathering near the Epsilon sector. But something was different about their formation. "They're mimicking our tactics," Rodriguez's hologram explained, "using chaotic patterns, deploying physical countermeasures. They think they've figured out how we fight." Santos studied the display, noting how the collective ships moved in seemingly random patterns. "But that's their mistake, isn't it? They're trying to copy our unpredictability." "Which makes them predictable," Rodriguez finished. "They can imitate chaos, but they can't understand it. Not like we do." The plan that followed was classic humanity, taking a strength and turning it into a weakness. The combined fleet would let the collective think their adaptation was working, draw them into a trap of their own predictable unpredictability. "All hands, battle stations," Santos ordered. The Valley Forge's crew moved with practiced efficiency, but not the mechanical precision of their earlier battles. They'd learned to flow like water, adapting to circumstances rather than following rigid protocols. The battle that followed would be studied in military academies for generations. The Void Collective, believing they had human tactics, fell into pattern after pattern. Their chaotic movements had underlying logic that human intuition could recognize and exploit. "They don't understand," Zyra observed from her position on the bridge. The Arcadian specialist had become a permanent liaison to the human fleet. "You don't fight chaos with chaos. You fight it with Controlled adaptation. Santos finished. Every failure teaches us something new. Every loss makes us stronger. The Valley Forge shuddered as it executed a maneuver that would have been impossible 3 months ago. A combination of Arcadian phase technology and human redundancy systems, allowing it to partially exist in multiple states of reality. The engineering crews had dubbed it quantum surfing, and it let them match the collective's phase-shifting abilities. But it wasn't perfect. Sometimes it failed, systems overloaded, crews were injured. And each failure taught them something new. Remember, Santos broadcast to her crew, "We're not trying to be perfect. We're trying to be impossible to predict." The battle raged for hours, a dance of adaptation and counter-adaptation. Human ships took heavy damage, but kept fighting with backup systems and jury-rigged repairs. Arcadian vessels, learning from their allies, began incorporating redundancies and mechanical backups. When the collective finally retreated, the combined fleet had lost 27 ships, but the enemy had lost far more than that. They'd lost their understanding of how to fight humans. Every time they thought they'd figured out human tactics, those tactics evolved. In the aftermath, Santos returned to the Memorial Hall. New names would be added to the wall, more lessons learned at terrible cost. But as she watched engineering teams installing hybrid technology that combined human redundancy with Arcadian advancement, she knew every sacrifice brought them closer to victory. "Captain," Chen called from the doorway. "The Arcadian High Command is requesting your presence. They want to understand how we keep going after such losses." Santos touched the memorial wall one last time. "Tell them we'll show them something more important than victory. We'll show them how to learn from defeat." The war was far from over, but humanity had given the galaxy something it desperately needed: the understanding that perfection wasn't the goal. The goal was to never stop learning, never stop adapting, never stop rising from failure stronger than before. The war room aboard the UESS Thermopylae hummed with activity as Admiral Rodriguez and First Speaker Lyra presented their final strategy. After 6 months of brutal warfare, intelligence suggested the Void Collective was preparing for one massive, decisive strike. "They've committed 90% of their remaining forces," Rodriguez explained, gesturing to the holographic display. The tactical map showed thousands of collective vessels gathering at the edge of known space. "This isn't just an attack, it's a desperate gamble." Lyra's energy form pulsed with determination. "They've lost their greatest advantage, predictability. The collective can no longer anticipate our movements or counter our tactics with certainty. They're resorting to brute force." The combined human Arcadian fleet had evolved beyond what either civilization could have achieved alone. Human ships now incorporated Arcadian phase technology, but controlled through mechanical systems rather than pure energy interfaces. Arcadian vessels bristled with kinetic weapons alongside their energy projectors, their crews trained in human-style adaptive tactics. "Operation Breaking Dawn is ready," Captain Santos reported from her position near the tactical display. The Valley Forge, like every vessel in the fleet, had been modified for this final battle. Engineering reports the quantum surfing drives are stable. Well, as stable as they ever get. That drew a chuckle from the human officers and a flicker of amusement from the Arcadians. They'd learned to appreciate the human definition of stable, not perfect, but reliable enough to work when it mattered. "The collective expects us to defend," Rodriguez continued. "Their tactical analysis will show them exactly where a logical defense should be positioned. So naturally, we'll be somewhere else entirely," Santos finished. "The oldest trick in the human book, when the enemy expects a defense, attack." The plan was audacious, combining human aggression with Arcadian precision. While a small force played the role of defensive fleet, drawing the collective's attention, the main fleet would strike at their command and control structure using a combination of technologies that had never been tried together. "They've adapted to our individual tactics," Chen explained from his engineering station. "But they've never seen everything deployed simultaneously. Quantum surfing, kinetic strikes, energy weapons, and our newest addition. He gestured to a series of unassuming metal spheres displayed in the hologram. The spheres are filled with a specialized nanomaterial, Zyra explained, her crystalline form glowing with pride at the joint human-Arcadian creation. When detonated, they create a field that forces everything within range into a single quantum state. The collective won't be able to phase through reality if they're locked into one version of it. Admiral Rodriguez surveyed the assembled commanders, human and Arcadian, standing together. I won't lie, this will be our costliest battle yet. The collective will fight with everything they have. But they're fighting to win. We're fighting to survive, to protect, to forge a future where our civilizations stand together. The next 12 hours were a blur of preparation. Ships moved into position, crews ran final checks on hybrid systems, and commanders briefed their units. The memorial walls on human ships gained no new names that day. Everyone understood they were saving space for what was to come. The battle began at 400 hours fleet time. The Void Collective struck exactly where their tactical analysis suggested the defensive fleet should be, only to find a token force equipped with sophisticated sensor decoys. By the time they realized their mistake, the main fleet had already launched its attack. The Thermopylae led the charge, its quantum surfing drive allowing it to exist partially out of phase with normal space. Behind it came waves of hybrid ships, each combining the best of both civilizations' technology. They struck the collective's command structure from an impossible angle, emerging from a blind spot their enemies' perfect predictions had never considered. Launch the quantum locks, Rodriguez ordered. The unassuming metal spheres deployed in a precise pattern, their detonation forcing bubbles of space-time into fixed states. Collective ships, caught in these fields, suddenly found themselves unable to phase between realities. The battle that followed was chaos theory in practice. Human ships executed maneuvers that Arcadian tactical computers classified as impossible, while Arcadian vessels provided precision strikes that human gunners could never have achieved. The collective, forced to fight in a single reality state, found themselves facing an enemy that had mastered both order and chaos. But victory came at a terrible cost. The Valley Forge, leading a desperate attack on a collective flagship, took devastating damage. Santos ordered her crew to evacuate, then used her crippled ship as a kinetic weapon, its quantum surfing drive transforming the vessel into a reality-phasing projectile that shattered the enemy command ship. The collective's perfect formation broke. For the first time in their existence, they faced not just defeat, but extinction. Their remaining ships began to retreat, only to find themselves caught between waves of human and Arcadian vessels working in perfect synchronization. They're broadcasting the surrender signal, Lyra announced, her energy form bright with disbelief. Rodriguez stepped forward, her expression solemn. Accept it. We're not here to exterminate them. We're here to protect our future. In the aftermath, as rescue ships picked up survivors and damage reports flooded in, Chen found Zyra in the Thermopylae's observation deck, watching repair crews work. Your civilization feared us once, he said quietly, called us Deathworlders, quarantined us because we were too aggressive, too primitive. Zyra's crystalline form shifted in what had become recognizable as a smile. We feared what we didn't understand. We thought perfection was the ultimate goal, that anything less was primitive. You taught us that imperfection, the ability to fail, learn, and adapt, is the greatest strength of all. The combined fleet regrouped around the Arcadian core worlds, its ships bearing the scars of battle but still functioning. Human vessels with patches of Arcadian energy metal covering battle damage. Arcadian ships with human-style backup systems that had saved them when their primary systems failed. Admiral Rodriguez stood at the Thermopylae's viewport, watching the fleet that represented the future of both civilizations. We came to save them, she mused, but in the end, we saved each other. They taught us to reach for the stars, and we taught them to remember where they came from. The war was over, but its legacy was just beginning. Humanity had earned its place among the stars not through peaceful first contact, but by proving that sometimes the most primitive solution was exactly what an advanced civilization needed. The Deathworlders had become not just allies, but teachers, showing the galaxy that true strength lay not in perfection, but in the eternal drive to learn, adapt, and overcome. As new joint colonies were established and hybrid technologies developed, the memorial walls on human ships remained as reminders, not just of sacrifice, but of the lesson that had saved two civilizations, that in an infinite universe, the ability to embrace imperfection, learn from failure, and keep fighting against impossible odds was the most advanced technology of all.